610 AM, 102 FM.
I listen, therefore I know.
Online at kvnutalk.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
I listen on the app.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Roof Rescue. Still 4 months away from her pending retirement, Utah State University President Noelle Cockett on Monday delivered her final State of the University address with a comprehensive accounting of the past 12 months at USU, plus projections for the school's future. She told a crowd at the Eccles Conference Center that at the end of her term in July, as a tenured faculty member, she will rejoin the Department of Animal, Dairy, and Veterinary Sciences at USU. Responding to a question about recent delays in administrative hirings, including 3 interim vice presidents serving over athletics, statewide campuses, and student affairs, she said if she filled those positions before she left, she would be hiring someone else's close administrative team. And she said it's not really fair on both sides, saying that they have incredible people in the interim positions right now. She said it would take away the new president's opportunity to fill those positions. Those 3 interims have agreed to stay on for the present. She lauded the way USU continues to advance in national rankings of research universities, recognized the school's most successful fundraising year ever, and pointed out the advances made in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she concluded with an emotional thank you. KVNU News Time is 5:06. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy skies, low in the mid-20s. Slight chance of rain and snow Wednesday morning, then a 50% chance of rain in the afternoon on Wednesday, high temperature in the lower 40s. It's been to 33 degrees right now at KVNU. Turn life up. Schedule a hearing evaluation with Dr. Paul Daines at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. Go to cachehearing.com. That's cachehearing.com.
This is David from Roof Rescue. A roof is not something most people think about until they notice a leak on the ceiling. This time of year, fluctuation in temperatures, along with rain, snow, and ice, can do a number on your roof. If you notice these leaks, they won't go away on their own and are oftentimes a sign that the roof has reached the beginning of the end of its life. Call Roof Rescue for a free analysis, diagnosis, and estimate. Let's fix those leaks and keep you dry this winter. Call 435-999-4268 or visit roofrescueusa.com. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. The Idaho Senate on Monday voted 22-12 to pass a bill criminalizing gender-affirming health care for minors 1 month after the state House passed similar legislation. The measure bars transgender and transitioning children or children with gender dysphoria from receiving hormones or puberty blockers to alleviate their symptoms or help them with transitioning. Doctors prescribing these hormones or blockers could be charged with a felony and face prison time. The Senate will send the measure back to the House for consideration of the Senate amendments. If the House agrees, the bill will go to Governor Brad Little. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends gender-affirming care to treat children struggling with gender dysphoria. The organization says those who struggle with the condition are more likely to think about suicide or attempt suicide. Before the vote, Senator Melissa Wintrow, Democrat from Boise, read a letter from a constituent pleading with lawmakers to reject the bill. And according to a recent study by Wallet Hub, Utah is the second least stressful state in the U.S. for 2023. The study ranked each state on 41 metrics, including job security, median credit score, housing affordability, and crime rate per capita. Utah performed particularly well in terms of work-life balance, access to mental health resources, low divorce rates, and low poverty rates. The study also offered advice on no-cost options for reducing stress, such as exercising, reading, and socializing with friends and family. KVNU News Time is 5:09. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Keeping you informed 24/7. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru for Morris Columbus Travel on Holland America Line with the biggest cruise promotion of the year, including a free drink package, free specialty dining, free Wi-Fi, and free shore excursions. Sail with Holland America Line and get free. And for the best travel deals on the planet, give us a call at Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
Hi everyone, it's Congressman Blake Moore here. My staff is looking forward to traveling throughout the 1st District, hosting mobile office hours on March 27th and 28th. They will be in Davis, Weber, and Cache counties and available to address casework, resolve issues with federal agencies, and hear how we can best serve you. We're here to help. Be sure to go to my website and sign up for our weekly e-newsletter and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Rep. Blake Moore for more updates and announcements. Thank you. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
Feels like Tuesday. Tuesday has no feel.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show. It is Tuesday, March 28th. I can't get over the weather today. This is kind of the day I've been waiting for. Just that full on. I took my jacket off today. I didn't really need to.
You're a brave man.
I did because I could. Oh man, it's just nice out there. Actually got a little too warm walking between some buildings today. I don't know. It's just great.
If you're in the sun, it's nice.
Yeah, in the shade it still feels a little bit like January. But temperatures just really starting to feel like spring in the sunshine out there. And just beautiful today. So enjoy, mainly because... my topics this hour might not be so enjoyable because I'm going to get to something I've never done on this show before. I tend to stay away from these things because the people who generally make such predictions get eye rolls from me because they're always wrong. But I started thinking about the technology and the technical possibility behind something a friend proposed a while ago that I kind of scoffed at. I said, it'll never happen. And then it's just kind of stuck in my head. So what is it? And what is my dystopian prediction? Well, my prediction is that by 2032, there will be at least a notable, probably not enough to really make anything happen, block of voters in the United States, but notable in size, at least for some news stories, group of voters in the United States who will rally behind a software for president. Or if you prefer,
an AI president?
An AI-styled Max Headroom-like. Bill and I talked about this a little bit on the show the other day, talking about Max Headroom, talking about AI. So I started exploring this, and I sent some feelers out to some friends I have who work professionally in fields of technology that are relevant to this, both politics and the technology behind artificial intelligence and software as an engaging tool as opposed to just something that does what you say. Software that talks back, basically, which has actually been around for decades, but it's been perfected and refined to a mind-blowing extent these days. You don't realize this, but if you happen to file your taxes this year, by the way, if you hadn't filed your taxes, clock is a-ticking, but if you happen to have filed your taxes this year using any of the predominant, well-known free tax services, by the way, make sure they're free, because everybody this year seems to have jumped on the whole surprise, this part's not free bandwagon. And one I can recommend, Tax Act.
Oh, you want us to file it with the?
Yeah, you want us to actually
that's gonna
submit this?
$500.
That'll be, yeah, you will need your debit card for that. But yeah, so the IRS actually recommends a handful of actually verified free services that apply in most tax scenarios, and Tax Act is one that I've used in the past. Didn't use them this year, but used them in the past, and reputable. And they even do this, is my point, which is this. It asks you questions. It's if you feel like you're actually talking to someone. Also, if you've ever used a chat bot, as they're often referred to, I know Xfinity uses them. I don't know why, because theirs is absolutely useless and doesn't actually help you in any way. And just in the end says, oh, sorry, you're going to have to call anyway, which I knew, but it still forces you to go through the chat first before they reveal the 800 number. This is artificial intelligence. We don't think of it that way, but it's artificial intelligence. Anything where software is choosing between a number of options that it has been pre-given, that have been determined for it to choose from, and it looks at the live conditions of the information you've just put in and chooses between those and gets the right one, that is software acting artificially intelligent. And that's why, so when people think AI, they think something bigger. They think, robot servants and the metal monstrosities of sci-fi films. But artificial intelligence is actually just software. But it's gotten so smart. And so what spawns me to finally... So I kind of downplayed this when we talked about it just last week. I said, yeah, this is a possibility, but I don't think something like this is ever really going to, in our lifetimes at least, be smart enough to do it. Then I kept reading, I kept looking into this, and I've changed my mind for a couple of reasons. One, we all know this. There is always a block of voters who almost look for the weirdest thing to believe. We've all seen it. And maybe they're within our own groupings, political groupings as well. Maybe people who we agree with on everything but this. Or maybe they're actually members of our own political party. And it happens on both sides of the political aisle. But there is always a block of weirdos. And they will get behind the weirdest things. And sometimes you watch them and you think, what? How does this make sense to you? And yet there they are, and they firmly believe, and you just it's hard to process. So this has always happened. This probably goes back and predates recorded history in human behavior. And psychologists have some theories. And it's not too far off to say there are folks who chase these things. It's more exciting than reality, and they become a bit addicted to finding something more exciting than reality. And that's a big part of it. And this leads to all kinds of wild conspiracy theories. And those conspiracy theories can take on something that is kind of creepily close to religious dogma. And then that becomes a lifestyle. And then anything that threatens that lifestyle becomes the enemy. And then, well, that's where things can get really ugly. This is human behavior 101. But it is most noticeable in sports and politics. We all know that as well, right? So now, with that as the foundation, let's talk a little bit about the technology behind AI and what I've learned just talking to some folks this week and what triggers this today. Well, we'll start there. A New York Times article showing that political campaigns are actually already using this to write fundraising emails, which are pretty cookie cutter. So that makes sense. You know, if you can plug in a few metrics, dates, dollar amount requested, even maybe a handful of issues you type into these fields, and then the artificial intelligence software composes the email for you. It's a time saver, right? Campaigns are already doing that. Campaigns are also using artificial intelligence, and have been for a while now, to analyze data and do so at a far more rapid click than a team of consultants has ever been able to do. And so that makes sense too. You know, so the artificial intelligence as of today applied to political campaigns is basically just automating a job or making faster a process that previously took X amount of time and required X amount of people. Now it's software. That's not necessarily revolutionary, but it's intriguing. And what it got me thinking of is that, so here's the part I won't predict. I won't predict what the trigger is. Because one of my friends, when I was bouncing this off, one of my geek friends, too, I was just asking him, am I right on the technique here, the technology that would be in use of one day software gaining a group of support large enough to be noticeable in a presidential race? Am I on the technology that would be at play here? And he confirmed that. But then he also pointed out that there's a question at the very start of all this of my prediction. And again, my prediction is by 2032, no earlier, no later, there will at least be a block of people sizable enough to be noticed. Not sizable enough to influence anything, thankfully, but sizable enough to be noticed. There will be a block of voters in the United States who rally behind software as a candidate to run the country. No earlier than 2032, no later. That's my prediction. He pointed out, my friend, that there's a question that has to be kind of answered earlier than that in his mind, which is what triggers this? Does the artificial intelligence software, some artificial intelligence entity, for lack of a better word, does it get smart enough that it decides to plan for years to run for president and then successfully pull it off in 2032? Or does some nefarious player inside the United States or outside the United States, say a Putin-type figure who wants to meddle and wants to just kind of throw a wrench in all the works in the United States, as Putin has done, having only social media really as his tools so far? Imagine if he can do it with software, and then imagine people falling for it, which you can because it just happened. 2 presidential elections in a row, actually. We saw this as a big part of politics. Campaigns that could be easily tied to Russian influence organizations that are just barely, on paper, separated from the Russian government. And they did it. They pulled it off. And they raised a lot of money. And then supported the worst candidates. I mean, this is meddling. And imagine having artificial intelligence to do that with as opposed to just social media as it's happened so far. Well, obviously, someone's going to try it. So I'm not going to answer that question. I don't know. I doubt artificial intelligence advances enough to be, Skynet from the Terminator movies and subtly plan and lay things out for years for this moment to just swoop in and run itself for president, knowing that it's built the foundation to succeed. I don't think we're there by 2032. I think we might get there if we're not careful. If we don't start asking questions like should we as opposed to just can we. But I don't think we're there by 2032. But I think we would be at a point where some nefarious entity or individual could do it on purpose. And by 2032, no earlier, no later, again, my prediction, a group of voters large enough to be noticeable, though not large enough to swing an election, are going to rally behind software that's saying everything they want to hear. But on the other side, let's talk about how this would actually work to make my case. We'll be back right after this.
You've heard a lot about the state's wood stove conversion program. However, you may not understand whether or not you qualify as a resident of Box Elder or Cache counties. Don't worry. Let the pros at Chim Chimney help you navigate the program. But don't delay. Sign-ups will be underway soon. Ask Chim Chimney about rebates of up to $3,800 for qualifying conversions from inefficient wood stoves for fireplaces. They sell, service, and install Fireplace Extraordinaire and Lopi. Visit them at chimchimney.com.
It's time to vote in the Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
Reward your favorite businesses in Northern Utah by casting your vote at bestofnorthernutah.com. You can vote once per day, every day through March 29th.
Best of Northern Utah.
This is the contest every business hopes to win. So vote now and let your voice be heard. Go to bestofnorthernutah.com and vote now.
Best of Northern Utah.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. He sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself.
For many military veteran caregivers, their caregiving journey starts earlier in life and lasts longer. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, so what's a great way to spread awareness that driving high is illegal everywhere? A catchy song, of course.
You can run, but you can't drive high. You can run, but you can't drive high.
Friendly reminder, don't drive high. If you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I see you finally got a new helmet.
I did. Bought it cheap online. Follow me. We'll turn off here.
I'm right behind you.
Watch the cars. They can be crazy.
Teddy! No! Are you okay? Somebody do something!
Was this young man hit by a car?
Yes, and his helmet is smashed.
It's a brand new helmet.
It's probably a fake. Fakes cause real harm. You're smart, buy smart. Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council and the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
753-5868 if you want to join me in my dystopian prediction or disagree with my prediction. For those just tuning in again, my prediction is, and I really feel like I want to qualify this again and again because I can't stand the predictions you hear sometimes. Anytime there's new technology. Google was going to make us dumb. It didn't. Social media was going to turn us all into hermits who never saw each other face to face again. Well, it turns out social media actually was just a great way for kids to plan events where they go out and meet face to face. None of these predictions, few of these predictions come true. And they tend to be fuddy-duddies scared of change. And I want to be really careful that that's not what I'm doing here. And so the first thing I'll say is, I don't know that I would, if given the choice, I don't know if I would stop this. Because I think the benefits of perfecting artificial intelligence and the applications are so broad that we should pursue it. So I'm not saying stop now. What I'm saying is let's be steeled for this potential outcome I'm predicting, which again is that by 2032 there will be a large enough block of voters to be noticeable, though not large enough to change anything or swing an election. Large enough to be noticeable and reported on, block of voters who get behind software for president. So I've laid it all out and all the different possibilities. And again, not trying to predict whether this is artificial intelligence becoming smart enough to do this on its own, which I doubt, especially by 2032, even though that's a ways off, not far enough probably, or a nefarious individual or other entity like a foreign government. We've already seen this with Putin and them using social media through private companies, quote unquote, that are just barely removed from the Russian government to meddle in the U.S. and the U.K. and Canada's politics, even trying to stir unrest and division with fake Facebook groups and fake candidate campaigns and all that, or campaign events and things like that. This is already happening, but my prediction, I would probably lean more towards, a foreign entity or individual even, or maybe just a bad person here in the U.S. even, that does this on purpose, using AI for whatever their agenda is. But here's technically how I think it happens. And I'm being dead serious. I'm not trying to be funny. I really think this happens by 2032 in that presidential race. And the way I think it happens is first, you have, let's say it's a foreign entity. And so they start this process years before the race they plan to target. So they'll start this in 2028, if not earlier. And so what happens is, using artificial intelligence, you are going to be able to understand and predict the decisions of the electorate even more so than we already can. Right now, we know that if you run X number of radio ads and TV ads for X number of days this close or this far away from the election, it'll have X effect on your numbers. And for the most part, the consultants get that right. It's down to a science, because we are, in the end, actually quite predictable. And we don't vote with our heads as much as we think we do. We vote with our guts. And that can be manipulated, and how far or how little has been tested. So it is down to a science. So now imagine taking what we know now about how voters can be influenced by things that, sure, you can make the argument we shouldn't let ourselves be influenced, but I'm talking about the reality, which is we are. And now introduce artificial intelligence. But I guess more importantly, be the first to do so. And that's what's key here. Because what will happen is some entity, some group, some individual will start this process 4, 5, 6 years before the race they want to target. And whatever their agenda is, I don't know. I'm not predicting that either. I'm saying someone will do this, and they will run this software candidate, for lack of a better phrase, a package of artificial intelligence data sets. And they'll do so in a way that they first build a large public following. And like I laid out before, the way conspiracy theory groups usually work, it begins as kind of chasing something interesting because reality is boring, and then convincing yourself to believe it, and then cutting out all challenging evidence, only surrounding yourself and filling your head with supporting evidence, confirmation bias it's called, and then believing that so strongly it becomes almost like religious dogma, and then that becomes a lifestyle, and then that becomes something scarier, which is that anything that challenges that lifestyle is not just someone who disagrees with you, they are the enemy. This is human psychology 101, and it happens all the time in small ways and big ways, but someone is going to exploit that with artificial intelligence. They're going to build a support group large enough to then use it to grow itself. These groups tend to grow exponentially and less challenged. And this is going to be kind of behind the scenes while all this is happening. Maybe it'll be a Facebook group. Maybe Facebook will be dead and gone by then. That's another prediction for another day. Yes, I think it will be. But anyway, they'll do this using whatever tools are available. They'll build a movement. And this movement will be based off of literally just people hearing what they want to hear and artificial intelligence feeding them that. And they'll love it. Then what happens next is somehow you've got to bridge the gap between either, hey, do we really need to put a person as the head of this movement? My guess is the argument would be something along the lines of maybe it would be more democratic. Maybe it would be more for the people if we didn't have an actual candidate. What if, this is how it will be framed, what if we all ran for president? Now, sure, we've got to put a name on paper, and there has to be an individual to eventually be the candidate. Those are laws here in the United States. But who it is doesn't really matter. So let's just pick a person who agrees to be kind of like a shell company for our movement. And they do that. But the whole thing, again, is being driven by and organized by and run by and also backed by the decisions of software. The decision of software to say what needs to be said to keep the support there, solid and maybe even growing. The decision of what to say to get people behind this. The decision of how to run the campaign, how to run the ads, when to run the ads, how much money to raise, how you can beat your opponent. All of this being calculated in real time by software, while the other campaigns are doing the old school, let's run an actual human being that really wants to be president. It will be weird to watch. It won't gain traction enough to influence the outcome of the race, but a sizable number of American voters will get behind this because they're hearing what they want to hear, And it will give whoever or whatever entity is behind this whole quote-unquote movement driven by artificial intelligence software enough influence to achieve some goal. Whatever that goal is, I also won't predict. It's frightening to think about this. It's such an obvious reality, too. That as I thought this through, as I talked to my friends who know more about the technical side of this stuff than I do, as I applied that to what I do know about politics and how campaigns are run, the science, the political science of everything from ads to influence campaigns to what gets people to vote. You throw all this together, stir it up a little bit in your head, let it simmer for a week, which is about what I've done. It suddenly clicks. It is obvious that this happens. It's already kind of happening. It's just not being fully driven by software at this point. Software is a tool for the drivers at this point. At some point, there's going to be a shift in at least one faction in the United States of voters. And it's going to change to where the AI is the driver. It's making all the campaign decisions, including what to say to supporters. All you need is a person willing to stand there and be a parrot. And you've got a campaign that at least gets noticed. Again, I don't predict this will ever actually win a president. I don't think we'll ever have max headroom for president. I don't think that'll ever happen. But I, again, do predict that an artificial intelligence-driven campaign gets enough traction to get on the map by 2032. And I really... the whole thing just kind of scares me. Again, not enough to say we should pull the handbrake right now and stop all we're doing in trying to perfect and design actual artificial intelligence. I don't think we should. I think the applications are huge, and I think we can control it if we're careful. We've controlled other things that had just as much risk involved. But it's still kind of creepy to think about the possibility.
And the president, if AI became president, they could get hacked.
Sure. That's the other thing. Yeah, you can
launch a nuclear war.
You can lose control. You could succeed one day at getting software elected president. Maybe the campaign is, look, it's going to make better, more scientific, and more less emotional decisions than any human being. And maybe people are like, you know what, you're right. And that sounds good right now because politics are just crazy. And they get behind this idea, and then, yeah, as Bill mentioned, then, you know, it's exposed to a hacking. And suddenly you don't control your own powers anymore. And again, the only backstop against this is right now, and maybe artificial intelligence first runs a campaign to get this changed in the United States through an issue campaign. But right now, the only thing stopping it is that you do have to be a human being to run for president in the United States. The other thing that might scare you, those rules aren't as clearly spelled out as you would think. A lot of this has always just been what might be referred to as a gentleman's agreement because it's never come up before.
You're human in parentheses.
Yeah, it's just been assumed, right?
Or quotes.
But you do have to be a resident or at least qualified as a resident. And I don't know that software is ever going to get there. But again, maybe software could influence enough voters to change those rules before they mount the attempt to run for president. This will happen. 753-5868. Now I'll look at the local headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:38, and the news is brought to you by You&I Furniture. A 30-year-old Hiram man has been sentenced to 7 months in jail for sexting with an undercover police officer posing as a 13-year-old girl. Evan Douglas Hopper cried as he told the court that he regretted every day what he did. Hopper was sentenced Monday morning in First District Court. He previously accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to 2 counts of enticing a minor by internet or text, a second-degree felony, and dealing in materials harmful to a minor, a third-degree felony. Hopper was arrested December 30th after he began communicating with a Logan City police officer on a website where users post captioned images and chat with others. The chats began in October after the officer claimed to be underage. Hopper sent a pornographic photo of himself. Hopper expressed interest in meeting to engage in illegal sexual activity, which had been discussed. However, the communications later ended. Police obtained a search warrant and tracked the user account to Hopper's Hiram residence. He was detained by officers and said that he sent the pornographic messages by mistake, claiming that he had been chatting with multiple people at the time. Judge Spencer Walsh commended law enforcement's efforts to protect children in society. He noted how Hopper had tried to entice and groom the officer, who was posing as the 13-year-old girl. He said the defendant could learn from the experience by paying his debt to society. North Logan Mayor Lindsay Peterson made her monthly appearance on KVNU's For the People program on Monday. And the mayor expressed the hope that the snow keeps on melting away, as they have quite a few events planned for April in the city.
Walmart is doing a renovation, so they're having a grand opening on the 21st.
Really? The North
and they're planning on bringing in some animals there, some farm animals,
really?
And having a bunch of giveaways and things like that. So I think that's super
cool.
fun. The honeybee pageant's on the 22nd. We haven't firmed this up, but we're talking about doing a Founders Day of service. So Founders Day, when North Logan was formed. And just doing a big service project. I think that's something that's needed in our community.
And Peterson said the city recently conducted a citizen satisfaction survey, which garnered 700 responses, and one response that seemed to be somewhat universal in the reactions.
I went through on my social media talking about some of the information that we got from that. We just published the graphs from that. And we're going to be continuing to talk about that, because I think it's important not only to get that information, but also to share with everyone what other people in the community said about, the issues that they see in North Logan, some improvements that we can make. And one of the biggest surprises that came out of it for me is the universal support for a rec center with a pool, an indoor pool facility.
So the mayor said they're talking about it, and they'll see where that goes. You can always get more information on what's going on in North Logan at northlogancity.org. And Cache Valley's Ellen Eccles Theater is set to commemorate its 100th anniversary with a 3-night celebration beginning tomorrow night. The opening night will feature Utah Festival Opera and Musical Theater, Music Theater West, Cache Theater Company, and several choral groups. The night's varied show, led by renowned musical directors, will feature more than 200 performers, dancers, and musicians. In addition to singing and choral artistry, there will also be a performance by the Hatch Academy of Music and Magic. The celebration continues on Thursday with movie night featuring free admission to classic films, and on Friday, celebrated singer-songwriters Mark Cohn and Sean Colvin will close out the theater's anniversary celebration as part of the Cache Arts 2022-23 touring season. KVNU News Time is 5:43.
Most people who buy from U&I Furniture are repeat customers. They come back again and again. So it's important to U&I to sell furniture with value and quality. And U&I loves what they do. They support local manufacturers and American-made brands. U&I's line of Southern Motion specializes in reclining furniture. Best Brand Furniture offers more petite styles. And U&I just added Klosner, who has a wide range of options and takes lots of special orders. It's a family-owned 4th-generation furniture store where value and quality is and always has been offered. That's why it's always a better buy at U&I Furniture, downtown Logan.
KVNU weather for tonight becoming mostly cloudy, overnight low in the mid-20s, and then a slight chance of rain and snow in the morning. Chance of rain in the afternoon, high temperature in the lower 40s. Rain Wednesday evening, rain and snow likely after midnight with little or no accumulation. It's been to 35. It's 35 degrees right now at KVNU. Adams Wealth Advisors puts clients first under any circumstance. You'll receive peace of mind with Adams Wealth Advisors. Schedule a time with an advisor today. Call 752-1702 or visit adamswealthadvisors.com. For more details on these and other stories, visit cashvalleydaily.com.
As a small business, achieving your financial goals and ambitions can be a steep and rocky mountain to climb. This is Brett Green, president of Cache Valley Bank. To conquer this mountain and achieve your goals, it takes planning, hard work, and discipline. At Cache Valley Bank, we have the resources, expertise, and flexibility to help you scale your way to success. Give us a call. Let's work together and climb the mountains that await. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
If your clothes are taking too long to dry, don't run out and buy a new dryer without first checking the vent. Clothes dryer vents can get clogged with lint, and birds can even build a nest in them. If your clothes are taking too long to dry, simply check the outside of your vent, and if you don't feel a swift amount of air, it's probably clogged. Simply clean the vent, and your dryer should work like new. Or, if your vent is too long or too difficult to clean yourself, then give the Duct Hunter a call at 770-4813.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. A couple of responses from listeners through the break there to my prediction. Artificial intelligence, or software rather, will be able to gain enough traction in the presidential race by 2032 that it will at least be noticeable. Not enough to influence the race, but it will get enough people behind it that people will be shocked and it will get reported on. Kind of with the whole, what, really? This just happened kind of thing. It'll happen by no earlier, no later than 2032 is my prediction in that presidential race. Someone will run software for president with a shell of a person standing at the front of it parroting what software tells it to say, that person to say. And people will get behind it anyway because it's saying what they want to hear, at least for that group. Listener says, is this a bad thing? There is no way artificial intelligence can be dumber than some of our politicians. Fair point. You know, I think it would be a bad thing mainly because of what it says about voters. You know, that you could get behind something that isn't even a real person if it's saying what you want to say. And maybe that's my own cynicism towards certain factions of politically active people in the United States. But I really think that I'm on this one. I might be off on the date, but I think I'm on this happening. Another listener says, what happens next? That's my question. You mentioned that the only person that will succeed at this is the person who tries it first. And after that, everyone will be doing it. So what happens then? Well, I think then you kind of reset to normal, where you have to have a human being again, but the campaign is still campaign decisions are still being made by artificial intelligence. And I think what happens then is you kind of actually get a stripping away to some extent. It already works this way. But I think once it's common knowledge that artificial intelligence is running all campaigns, people, I think, will stop paying so much attention to, successful campaigns as opposed to the individual at the heart of the campaign, the candidate. So in the end, I think this could come full circle to a good thing after some rough years where people realize, look, the campaigns are all equal as far as their strategies and their fundraising, and so every campaign's raising the same amount of money and doing the same things to try and win voters over, which is already kind of what's happening, at least in presidential race years. Well, they're not raising the same amount of money in presidential race years, but they're raising such a ludicrously large amount of money that the difference between the two campaigns doesn't matter. When you're getting into the $20 million range It doesn't matter if the other candidate has $23 million. It's a wash at that point. It's too much damn money is what it is at that point. Yeah, sorry, I said million. I should have said billion. For the overall presidential race, it's a $1 billion industry. So, yeah, I think that becomes a wash, and at that point, maybe we get back to something a little more sane, which is that it really strips away all of the trickery that is still influencing us now, equalizes all the campaigns as far as strategy and architecture, how they're built and how they're being run, because they're all running it with software now. And then it kind of gets back to a little bit the words actually coming out of the candidate's mouth. However, artificial intelligence is still going to be contributing a lot there. So I think what happens then is something. See, I've always said debates don't matter because it's just candidates. It's the format that fails debates, not the debate itself. Debates are hugely important, but the structure of debates for time slots and more oftentimes, unfortunately, renders them to candidates basically having 2 minutes each to read from their campaign website, which you could go do yourself. And occasionally they get into one or two little testy exchanges, maybe, but usually not. I think what all of this means is that post-2032, after we have that first attempt to basically elect a nobody with an entirely AI-driven campaign where every decision is being made by software, and the person who is at the front of the campaign who's put their name on the filing paper doesn't actually want to be president. They've just volunteered to be sort of like a shell, a person to put their name on the paper. After someone's tried that and had enough success again to get noticed, though not change the outcome of the race, is my prediction. I think after that, everyone jumps on board. And then it becomes really important at that point to put presidential candidates in a live setting where artificial intelligence can't be influential. So maybe that gets us back to a point where you have a radio broadcast, 2-hour unscripted debate with no format, just cage match. Just put them in the same room with microphones, throw out a couple of questions to get the ball rolling, and then just let the two candidates go at it. Which, honestly, I think would be a huge improvement over what happens these days. So, in the end, maybe a good thing. But 2032 is going to be a weird presidential year. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, this is James Stevens with White Pine Funeral Services. At White Pine, we value compassion, integrity, and service. We are committed to serving you and treating your family as our family. We will be here when you need us most, to listen, to help, and to provide exactly what your circumstances require. At White Pine, we promise to dedicate our time and attention to you and your family. We invite you to come by and meet us. We're confident you'll feel a difference.
Markets are unpredictable, but reaching your financial goals shouldn't be. Adams Wealth Advisors is dedicated to helping you navigate these challenges and ensure you're prepared for every outcome. Whether your financial plan revolves around advanced tax planning, estate planning, business strategies, retirement planning, or investment management, Adams Wealth Advisors team of CPAs, CFPs, and CFAs will provide the expertise needed to help you reach your financial goals. Visit AdamsWealthAdvisors.com. That's AdamsWealthAdvisors.com for more information or to schedule an appointment.
Own a small business or a farm? You thought about solar? Listen up. A new USDA grant was announced allocating $300 million for farmers and small business owners to put in solar. That's right. The government will help you get solar installed, covering 40% of the cost. And don't forget, as a business, you can save up to 50 or 60% more with federal and state tax credits. Second Sun Solar will install your system and help with the USDA paperwork. Call Second Sun Solar today at 435-363-9917 or online at utahsolardirect.com.
Wednesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show. We'll have more on the aftermath of the shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, including where do we stand on an official declaration of motive. Plus, Clay.
We'll also break down everything going on as it surrounds the ongoing battle over TikTok and more on Capitol Hill. That will be Clay and Buck, Wednesday edition.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Wrapping up today's show with two stories. The first out of Idaho. It passed the Idaho House today and awaits judgment in the Idaho Senate. And Idaho is pretty open-ended on their legislature. They're not constricted to the 45 days that Utah lawmakers are. So when the Senate picks this up, I don't know. I would guess soon. But the bill creates a new crime in Idaho called abortion trafficking. And it's getting a lot of attention today because, well, one, it's unconstitutional as all get out. And that's obvious from just almost the bill title. But two, it raises a lot of questions about, so there's this cyclical nature to politics where a certain side starts having some success. Maybe they win some court cases a few times. Maybe they win some legislative battles. And then they get a little overzealous, overexcited, and they, as the phrase is, jump the shark. They go too far. And then there's a public backlash to that. Slaps them back down. And I think that's kind of the cycle we're seeing here when it comes to abortion. Since the Supreme Court decision, I think anti-abortion groups and lawmakers are running for everything they can. They're just feeling unrestricted at this point. But there will be a public backlash to them going too far. When it's determined they've gone too far, I won't claim to know, because that's going to be different in every city, county, and state. But it will happen. It's the cyclical nature to politics. I think Idaho maybe just went there. Anyway, this bill is intended to ban anyone, make it a felony for anyone to drive a minor outside of the state for abortion services to a nearby state where abortion is still legal. In Idaho, it's either is or about to be, I can't remember, illegal in all cases, including cases of rape and incest, unless the child is under the like Utah's law, unless they're under the age of 12 or 13. Then they could still get an abortion in the case of rape and incest after a certain number of weeks. Anyway, the point of this bill is to stop anyone transporting someone to another state where abortion is legal, which Idaho is going to be surrounded by at least 3. And so the problem is the bill, because states can only decide what happens within their borders, the bill would also make it illegal for anyone to be transported within the state. So one example raised by an opposing lawmaker is an aunt driving a young niece to the post office to pick up a package. And in that package is medication that would induce an abortion. Who goes to jail? Well, this law says the aunt would go to jail. If it can be proved that she drove the minor to the post office to pick up this package and had any knowledge whatsoever that what was in the package, she'd be charged with a felony. It would also apply to, or could apply, one lawmaker pointed out in opposition, to someone driving to a medical clinic or hospital for care that in the end results in an abortion being performed by a doctor to save the life of the mother, and then someone decides to sue claiming that didn't need to happen. Whoever drove them to the hospital would be caught up in all of that. The point being, this is, well, you can't restrict the travel of women. So this will die in court. But again, the more interesting thing about it is that it exists at all. That I guarantee the sponsor knows this runs afoul of the Constitution. And yet, here we are. It's an interesting thing about politics. It just seems to happen all the time. A few wins, and then a certain side of a certain debate will just run with it and go too far, and then they get a slap back a little bit, and then the other side takes a turn. I don't know if it's human nature or what, but it definitely seems to be where we're at in politics now. So the other story, I'll link to this on our Facebook page to wrap up here. For all the hating on China and basically the devolution of our relationship with China, between the U.S. and China, Utah lawmakers kind of quietly on the opposite end of this thing. An AP report today showing lawmakers here in Utah delayed legislation that Beijing didn't like, nixed resolutions that condemn China's actions, and greased the wheels for a lot of influence here in the Utah for the Chinese government, including Confucius centers at some universities and more. It's a kind of a shocking behind the scenes from the Associated Press. No lawmakers have responded yet, but I'll be reaching out to see if we can get some response next week. For now, you can read the story linked on our Facebook page. That is our time today. Thank you for tuning in. Well, Dave Ramsey next here on KVNU Logan.